All right, so ladies and gentlemen, working paper 6-3. So I'm looking at work together. It says on April 30th of the current year, Fix It Now has completed the trial balance columns and the adjustment columns of the worksheet. Extend the up-to-date balances to the balance sheet or, that's the biggest phrase right there, or income statement columns, and then total each column. So I'm going to start at the very top, and I do line 1. Line 1 is cash. What type of an account is cash? What side again? That's its balance side. What kind of classification? What's that? The classification. Gotta stop talking. Thank you, asset. So, assets go where? Income statement or balance sheet? It is balance sheet. So I'm going to take $4,900 from my trial balance debit, and I'm going to put it on my balance sheet as a debit. I am not making debits and credits equal. I'm just taking it and putting it on the correct column, $4,900. Petty cash is what type of an account? Asset, liability, owner's equity, revenue, or expense? It is an asset. Assets go on the balance sheet. We just said that, so I'm putting $75 there. Accounts receivable, B. Waddell. Asset, liability, owner's equity, revenue, or expense? Tanner? Yes. So I put $1,387 there as a debit. I get to line 4 and I say, hold up the bus. Something different on line 4. Do not put $228 in your balance sheet debit column. Why? There is an adjustment. Lines 1, 2, and 3, there was nothing in my adjustment column, so I just took the number and put it over there. When I get to line 4 for supplies, I have a trial balance debit of $228, but I also have an adjustment credit of $153. A debit and a credit, I subtract. 2 debits, I add. 2 credits, I add. Which one is bigger, my debit or my credit? Debit. So that means I'm going to have a debit balance. So in my handy-dandy little calculator, I'm going to put in $228, and I'm going to subtract $153. And when I do that, what is my number? Anyone? Too much math in the morning already, or what? 75. So I'm going to put $75 on my balance sheet as a debit. Now I'm going to do exactly the same thing for prepaid insurance. Prepaid insurance, I have a trial balance of $375, and then I have an adjustment of $125. So using my handy-dandy calculator, $375 subtract $125, and I get a balance of $250, correct? And that goes on my balance sheet as a debit because my debit is bigger than my credit. I get to line 6 and it says accounts payable. Hold up those horses. If I see payable, what is that classification? Liability. Liabilities go where? Income statement or balance sheet? Yes, it goes on the balance sheet, but as a credit. You're right, Julian, because it is on the trial balance as a credit, so I have to put $267 on the balance sheet as a credit. Anytime we see the word capital, that tells us what is the classification. Owner's equity. Where does owner's equity go? Income statement or balance sheet? Balance sheet. So I'm going to take Connor Whitney Capital for $7,443 as a credit, and it goes on my balance sheet as a credit. I have Connor Whitney again, but it's not capital, it is drawing. And this is a contra owner's equity account, so it's still the name of the owner. So it's still owner's equity. It's going to go on the balance sheet, but not as a credit, but as a debit for $1,700. Right now, we're going to take a look at line number 9. Line number 9 is an income summary account. That is still going to have a classification of owner's equity, but what's the balance in income summary? I'll give you a hint. There's no numbers. Nothing. Okay? So, the next chapter, we're actually going to use that account title, but right now, we're just like, okay, I don't have to do anything with income summary. I like that. So now I get to line 10. Line 10 is sales. Classification of sales. Revenue. Where does revenue go? income statement, right? So, sales is going to go on my income statement as a credit for $2,160. Line 11 is advertising expense. It has that word in there, expense. Expenses go on what column? Income statement or balance sheet? Income statement. So I'm going to put $460 as a debit. Now we get to this line 12, cash short and over. It doesn't have the word expense in it, but it is classified as an expense. It's going to be right in the middle of all those expenses. So once one expense starts, that the rest of them that follow are going to be an expense. So I'm going to go ahead and put $6 on my income statement as a debit. Now, line 13, there is nothing in the trial balance. But we have something in our adjustment column, correct? So if I take a 0 in our trial balance and I debit it with $125, my new balance is now a debit of $125, not $1,250. That's the wrong number. Miscellaneous expense is $189. Supplies expense, same thing. We have 0 in our trial balance, and I have an adjustment of $153, so I have a new balance in my income statement as $153. Utilities expense, $550. Okay. Now, what I want you to realize is, once you put those numbers in, I want you to look up here, because I'm going to give you a ginormous hint, because that's what I like to do. I like to help you and make your mind work on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Look at the pattern of where the numbers go. Okay? The numbers on the top of your worksheet go where? Go on the right-hand side, right? The bottom part of your worksheet goes where? Goes on our income statement, correct? Now, this is my hint from you. Income summary down goes on your income statement. Now, we don't have a balance in income summary, right? But everything below income summary, right here, these are your revenue and these are your expenses. Income summary down, income statement. Everything above it goes on your balance sheet, because that is the order of our accounts. We have assets, we have liabilities, and we have owner's equity. Then we go revenue and expenses. So that's why you have your balance sheet and your income statement. Now, are our debits and credits going to equal? No. Remember, I told you they're not going to. The whole point of what we're doing right now is to get this income statement column to figure out, did we lose money or did we make money? What is my total revenue? $2,160, because there's only one revenue account. Now, we don't have our total expenses yet, but we're going to hope that our revenue is greater than our expenses. So right now, handy-dandy calculator, you are going to total each column. Income statement debit, income statement credit, balance sheet debit, balance sheet credit. Let's do some math, people. All right. How do we do? Do we do some numbers? We do some math? One of the best tips that I can give you on here is add up each column twice. Okay. The only one that I did not physically add up twice was income statement credit because, well, there was one number and I just put that number down there. But when I went through and added it up, I really added up my balance sheet credit column second because there was only two numbers. That one's really easy. And I added it up twice. Is it easy for me to put these numbers in and make a mistake? Because you're not going to see if debits and credits equal right away. I always strongly suggest add it up twice, because if you get the same number twice, the likelihood of you not making a mistake adding would be there. Do we agree on our numbers? We got a couple people nodding their heads. So let's go ahead and grade step 1 then. And we're going to move to step 2. Phew, got it all right. Okay, step 2. This is where I figure out whether or not I've made money or lost money. And if I look at these numbers right here, the whole point, income statement column, my revenue is bigger than my expenses. Do you see that? My revenue is $2,160. My expenses is $1,480. Is that 3 or 5? 3? This one's bigger. Agreed? So, this one's bigger. So right here on line 18, I write the word net income. Line 17 is going to remain blank. How much is my net income? Guess what we got to do? Well, we're not going to add. We're going to subtract. We're going to take the difference of 2,160, and I'm going to subtract 1,483. And when I do that, I got, what did you guys get? I agree, Isaiah, 677. Okay, so I am going to put 667 here as a debit. And here's the reason why. I put it here as a debit because if I add 667 to 1,483, what does that give me? 2,160? Would you agree if I add these two numbers together, it gives me 2,160? Did I type wrong? Yep. You're right. 77. I transposed a number. Thank you. 677, not 667. That would not cause my numbers to work out. Then I should get 2,160, right? Okay, this is my net income, $677. We all agree we go into business to make money. The owner gets that $677. Owner's equity has what for a normal balance? It's right here, above my head. Debit or credit? Capital. Connor Whitney Capital. Ooh. Credit. Do you see it right there? So the value of owner's equity should go up how much? 677. That's a credit, right? So I'm going to take this debit of 677 and put it here as a credit. And then I have a matching debit and credit again. Because accounting always has a way of proving. So now on my calculator, I'm going to take $7,710 and I'm going to add 677 and I get 8,387. That number sounds familiar. Right? Does that make my balance sheet numbers equal? Debits and credits? And it also makes my income statement numbers equal. So I now need to add lines 17 and 18. And that one right here is going to give me 2,160. 2,160 plus 0 gives me 2,160. Agreed? 8,387 plus 0 gives me 8,387. And we just used on my calculator to show me, this is how I prove my net income. 7,710 plus 677 gives me 8,387. That is how you prove a worksheet. So there are two steps to what we're doing here. The first thing we did is we put our numbers either on the income statement or on the balance sheet. Then we added down. First set of numbers should never equal. Then we determined our net income, and then we transferred it over. Now stop and give me some eyeballs here, because I need you to hear this. This is an example of a net income. Could we have a net loss? Yes. Will we have an example of the net loss in this chapter? You bet your Santa hat we will. Okay? So, what would happen on the net loss is right here, instead of net income, guess what we write? Net loss. Okay? Now, instead of it being on my income statement as a debit, it would go as my income statement as a credit. And on my balance sheet, not as a credit, it would go as a debit. The rest of it's done exactly the same. So what will happen is these two numbers, my expenses will be greater. And we always add going down, so I'm going to have to add to my revenue column. And if it goes here as a credit, it's got to go here as a debit. And that actually takes away from my value of owner's equity. It would increase my drawing type of account, so it would lower the overall balance. Okay? So you will have an example in this chapter where you're going to have a net loss. Just want to make sure I point that out. It's done the same, just change some of that information at the end. Let's rock and roll on that on your own. Oh, I should click on grade final step to make sure I did it well. Did it well. Woo! Got all my points. That's a great Monday morning.